Hello and welcome. Is your car a connected vehicle? Well, if it isn't just yet, it will be at some point. According to McKinsey, 95% of all new car sales in 2030 will be connected cars. So what's the market like today? Which way are we heading? This is what I'm going to try and find out with my guests. In the studio with me is Ross Douglas. Ross, hello.
Hi.
You are CEO of Autonomy, and you promote sustainable mobility solutions, and you also organize the Autonomy Mobility World Expo in Paris.
That's correct, thanks.
Okay. Also in the studio with me is Thomas Cardon. Thomas, welcome.
Thank you, welcome.
You are sales manager at BlackBerry QNX. You provide operating systems and software for embedded systems, including cars.
Indeed.
Okay. On the line with us is Karine Paulini. Karine, hello. It's great to have you back.
Thank you for having me again.
So, Karine, you are Director of EMEA Business Development at Sonatus. You provide software infrastructures for connected cars. You'll give us some details in a minute. And also on the line is Tu Li. Tu, you are Managing Director of Sino Auto Insights. Hello and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You are a consulting company. You operate out of China and the USA, I believe.
That's right.
Now, let's start with the basics. What is a connected car or smart car, and what is the benefit to the user? Karine, maybe you want to take that question.
Yeah, sure. So think of it of a device that will not live on its own anymore, but that will live in an environment. So this connected car will be connected to its environment, to the internet, to the cloud, and that will bring a new way of living with these cars to the user. So meaning you can have new features, new functions, and really benefits from this new connectivity.
Thomas, what's your definition?
Connected car, for me, is a car that will be enriched by a number of services which will be enabled through the software. So basically, the connected car is a car which doesn't work on its, well, which works on its own, but which is connected to a network, exchanging with the data with the network, and through those data, capable of enrich itself and enrich, I would say, the user experience by providing additional services in the car.
Can you provide some typical use cases as a driver? What can a smart car do for me? Tu, what do you think?
So, you know, it can entertain you. It can keep you safe. Some features that are already in many cars are adaptive cruise control, you know, lane control or lane assist. And so we're starting to see more entertainment, and those features are coming from China into Europe and the United States.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us another example of a practical use case?
Well, in China, they sell microphones with some electric vehicles, connected vehicles. So Tesla, we all know Tesla, they were selling microphones in the China market only with their vehicles. So that's a very unique use case to China. But as we get into ADAS, level 2, level 3, level 4, where you're able to do other things outside of paying attention to driving, I think we'll start to see more of the entertainment services be offered inside the vehicle.
Karine, your turn now. Give us one or two examples of what a connected car could do for the driver.
Yeah, sure. So, for instance, when you get closer to your home, it will interact with your home automation system. So it can send a message to your home automation system and say, hey, open the garage door or start the AC or the heating system. So that kind of things. And it's really all about as Thomas mentioned, all about the user experience.
Mm-hmm. Ross, give me two use cases.
I think, you know, what's really interesting, we see it with clients of ours, is that the fleet managers are starting to use the telematics and the connected car to optimize their fleet. So as fleets go from combustion to electric, the first thing is to work out which vehicle should become electric, and then the second is to work out how to optimize those vehicles. So any vehicle that is being used by more than one user, it being connected, you can optimize it and it has much more opportunity to get its running time or its use time up, so the downtime down, and as a result, you don't need as big a fleet to do as much mileage. On the consumer side, I think what's interesting is a Chinese NIO, the way they're using Nomi, and they're trying to use their connected car to give their vehicle a personality. So a bit like Siri, it sort of pops up, it has a cute face, you can speak to it. It now speaks German, Norwegian, obviously Chinese and English. And the way they want to enter the European market is with a car that has personality through it being connected, through the AI, and you can have a conversation with it. So those are two different use cases I can see.
To give us a bit of an overview of what the market is like today, who are the main players and what do they do?
So we can start with kind of the electrification. I mean, you can be connected without being electric, but normally people associate electric with connected. So China dominates the sector. In 2020, they sold about 1.5 million electric vehicles. 2021, 3.5. Last year, 6.5. Europe, I think last year the EU was around 1.2, 1.3 million. The United States last year was around 800,000. The big players are going to be Tesla, obviously. The biggest service that they provide for connected vehicle driving, their adapted driving assist system, and they sell that for about $12,000 US. But there are some players, Chinese players, that I think the European market should look out for. He had mentioned NIO is going to be one of them. BYD, they're a little bit less on the connected side, but Huawei is backing some horses with some connected vehicles, a brand called Avatar. You should start seeing those. And then Zeekr, which is a Geely brand, you'll start seeing those vehicles as well in Europe in the next 12, 18 months. And we're going to start to see much more integration with an individual's digital life outside of the vehicle. So just a quick synopsis. Most technology companies know what we search for when we're online, what we buy, but the final frontier is what we're doing while we're in our vehicle. Normally it's driving, but as smart, intelligent vehicles gain traction, we'll start to be able to do other things while we're on the highways. And I think that's kind of the opportunity that not only car companies see, but technology companies see.
Well, you mentioned mostly car manufacturers, but are there other companies in the value chain that will make money in that market? I don't know, software manufacturers or services companies?
Sure. So Apple has an operating system. Google has an Android operating system, and then Huawei, Tencent, and Alibaba, they all have operating systems. They're technology companies. And so I think there's going to be this battle for the data and the services that are going to be provided when you're inside the vehicle, starting, in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's already beginning and really heated in China. But as we see more and more electric vehicles, the smart features will also become a bit more ubiquitous.
How about you, Ross? How do you see the market today?
I mean, what's interesting for me in the market is that we've reached peak car sales in about 2017. So car sales are going down. And generally, most new cars, particularly in Europe, are bought by fleet managers, not by consumers. Consumers then buy them secondhand. So, what we see is that there's a decrease in car ownership. Cars are being driven less and people are becoming much more flexible. So that's why we're seeing car subscription companies like Cassie, for example, Toyota, Kinto, there are lots of now car subscription because people want more flexibility. So with connected cars, you can put them into car sharing platforms. You can sell them as a subscription service for 500 or 600 euros a month. So I think what will happen is that we'll have less and less individual car ownership, much more fleets and people accessing those fleets either through a car sharing or through a car subscription, or corporates who have a fleet that's being used during the week and not on the weekend will put it available for the weekend for consumers. So I think car sharing will radically reduce our need to own a car in order to have mobility and increase our ability to access different vehicles for different types of trips.
So connection services will be an enabler for this.
Correct. So you'll use your smartphone to access a connected vehicle, to open it, to pay for it, to use it, to communicate to the owner that you've used it here, the payment, that the condition of the vehicle is good when you've left it, et cetera, et cetera. So it will speed up the acceleration towards more flexible car use, and as opposed to only having car ownership as a way of using a vehicle. And always flexibility is much more stronger than fixed. Flexible always beats fixed, as we've seen with Netflix and sort of these subscription flexible models.
Karine, tell us a little bit about Sonatus as an example of a company that is one of the actors in this market. Who are your customers and what do you offer?
Yeah, so we are indeed part of this ecosystem that has been changing over the last few months or years. Before we used to see the OEMs, the tier ones. Now we see indeed software companies getting into this new trend of in-vehicle software and also integrators. So we are a software company. We are a product company. We provide software to the OEMs and to the tier ones to help them accelerate the innovation, software innovation in the vehicle. So we provide them building blocks so that they can develop their own software-defined vehicles. So right now, our customers are Hyundai Group, Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis, where we have deployed our software massively. We're talking about millions of vehicles. And so we've been working with this OEM to help them build their software-defined vehicle. And then we also work with the tier one suppliers. They used to be hardware provider, and now they tend to develop part of the software, but also partner with companies like us to build, I would say, an end-to-end solution to the OEMs for their SDV, software-defined vehicles.
Thomas, tell us a little bit about BlackBerry QNX. Where do you sit in the value chain? What do you offer, and who do you talk to?
That's a very good question. So it's interesting because we've been speaking a lot about services and connectivity. So this is all enabled through the software. Obviously, the software is running on top of the hardware. But let's be reminded that we're talking about cars. So cars need to be safe. Cars need to be secure. And so basically, in order to be able to host safely and securely all those services in the car, you need actually the type of software which we are developing, meaning that we are developing operating system, virtualization extension, hypervisor, which are sitting right on top of the hardware in the car. And which are designed in a way which they can enable the safety and the security of the vehicle, but still allow basically all the richness that the Android and so forth can bring to the vehicle. So we are not going to be providing directly the services, but without our solution, it's going to be very difficult to deploy those services in the car.
So you're not a front end. You won't interact with the driver.
We're hidden.
But you need to be there to make sure the driver's safe.
We are a well-kept secret.
Good. Let's talk a little bit about the role of the smartphone in this smart car picture. How will both elements, smartphone and smart car, interact? Ross, what do you think?
I mean, in terms of car rentals, car sharing, and fleets, the consumer accesses the vehicle through their smartphone, opens the vehicle through their smartphone, books and pays and stuff through their smartphone. I mean, once you're in the vehicle, obviously, it's then the whole debate whether the platform is a Google, Android Auto or Apple Play, or is it something that native that the automaker is able to build themselves. And that's obviously going to be the big opportunity in the question. So, if you're running Google Maps has the data, Google Maps has the opportunity to sell the advertising, where the charge stations are, where the restaurants are, et cetera, and that's going to be extremely valuable because whoever holds a relationship with the driver has the ability to extract revenue for digital services.
So no smart car without a smartphone. Tu, do you agree with that?
I think that's the million-dollar question. I think the automakers are trying to steal away the stickiness of the mobile phone and the services that are associated with that mobile phone. But as the automakers are slow to adopt software that an in-house software that can do that. They need to buy that software, quote unquote, buy from the Apples, the BlackBerries, and the Googles. So I'll give you an example. GM just kicked CarPlay out of their vehicles starting in 2024. It was a bold move by Mary Barra, but a necessary move if they're going to try to create that direct engagement with their users, with their customers, with their drivers. And so it's quite a conundrum because the legacy OEMs are really behind on software development when you look at them compared to a Tesla or the Chinese EV companies, which are going to be entering European and US markets over the next several years. And so they're really pressed for time, and in-house talent is lacking when it comes to that. So a lot of these decisions are the buy decisions, but long term, if they're going to be creating value, they need to be making that software in direct connection with their customers.
Mm. Interesting what you're saying about GM. From your standpoint, are they likely to succeed running their own software? No.
If you think of it from the standpoint of, I'm a handy craftsman, okay? I make beautiful physical things, and then all of a sudden I get disrupted by Apple, who does digital the best in the world, world class. Now, in a 5 to 7 to 10 year time span, I need to be able to learn how to do digital software services as good as the best in the world. And so it's going to be really, really challenging. But the OEM CEOs, they're already telling you by 2035, 20-30% of our global revenues will become coming from services. And so they've already, outlined their strategies, at least from the standpoint of how it will affect their revenues moving forward. So now they just need to go and execute, which is kind of the biggest challenge that all of the legacies have.
So kicking out Apple, that sounds like an interesting topic. Apple and Google, they seem to have taken a head start, being like, the interface, the user interface in the car. Is that something that is likely to change over time? Ross, what do you think?
I mean, Google's had 10 billion downloads over time. Here Maps probably a couple of 100,000, or TomTom. So, the scale of the difference is absolutely massive. A good European OEM is valued at 40, 50, 60 billion dollars. Google's on the trillion, so is Apple. So that, when you start adding AI on top of that, so these companies have all the data. Now they're starting to invest extreme amounts of money into AI, which will obviously improve that user experience. I think it's extremely difficult for a mechanical type company that makes mechanical things, relatively limited resources, to compete against big American or Chinese tech companies with unlimited resources, huge data pools that they can now put AI on top and start extracting, different types of, information and different types of revenue opportunities. So would you invest that money and try and compete head on with them? Who knows? I mean, what Google is doing is that they had Google Maps. Now Google has autonomous vehicles. Now Google is getting inside the vehicle. Google is now able to pay for trips through Google Maps. So that if you want to catch a train or a metro or a plane, Google is everywhere in our lives. We used to live in our car. We now live in Google. Yeah. It's extremely difficult to take on a company of that size that is so ubiquitous in your life. I don't know how they would do it.
Karine, in a nutshell, what do you think? Are Apple and Google there to stay in the car?
That's a good question, but I think that definitely took a big place in the car. Now there are also different layers on the car, but from an OS standpoint, definitely they are big, and I don't have a crystal ball, but I assume they will still stay with this big place for years ahead.
As a closing note, I'd like to get a sense of scale. How big will the market be for connected services in, say, in 2030? I think companies like Stellantis or Ford or GM, they're talking something like $20 billion a year. Tu, what do you think?
I think it's going to be massive. I think I've seen forecasts where today we're at 20, 30 billion as a total market, but we could get to $200-300 billion from a total market standpoint. And let me add to Ross's point earlier.
We're almost we're almost done. So you know, do it in a nutshell.
Oh no, so I could see Tesla selling cars at cost just to get more data, just to get more vehicles on the road. That's the kind of defense that the legacy OEMs need to play against. So,
everyone, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Sharing your thoughts. Everyone, thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.